I'm so excited to have the pleasure of speaking to you about the book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. The goal of this presentation is to give you really just a quick preview of the work we've been doing as a school based on the research and the learnings from the book, as well as share some of our current plans for the year. If you happen to have a chance to read Dr. Mitzmacher's most recent blog post that he published, you'll have seen that the theme for our school this year is disconnect to reconnect. It was the theme of our pre-planning sessions with the faculty. It was the theme for our middle school retreat that we just had, and it will be an ongoing theme throughout the year for the whole school. Now, given that we are a bring your own device school and our teachers and students all have blogs and blog folios, and we incorporate technology in many different ways in our curriculum, you're likely wondering, how exactly do you intend to disconnect? Well, I want to start by giving you a very brief summary of the anxious generation, as that truly has been the catalyst for most of the work that we've been doing. Haidt's research proposes that starting around the 1970s, there was this slow shift in the way that kids were being parented. So it used to be much more laissez faire. There was trust in the neighbors and community members to help kids keep kids safe. There was a lot of outdoor mixed aged play based on who lived around you. And then slowly throughout the 70s and 80s, there began to be this leaning towards not necessarily wanting kids to be too far away from home, a feeling that of stranger danger, not trusting them to be out of our sight, not wanting to them to go to the park by themselves or to the store by themselves. And in addition to that, also this desire to protect them from getting physically hurt. And then overcompensating in that way as well. So not letting them climb trees, play structures, the way play structures were designed and being put into parks even were potentially safer, quote unquote, than what was before. And then as technology advanced, this divide began to happen that parents were essentially overprotecting in the real world and underprotecting in the virtual world. And this led to children having less independence in the real world, way more independence in the virtual world, and in turn, a reduction in their willingness to take risks, both physically and in terms of making mistakes, even in the real world. So whereas we were seeing a reduction in hospital visits, for example, because of less risky play and kids were not getting hurt, which obviously, yes, we can understand is a good thing. Risks are what are needed in order for us to find boundaries and set boundaries and see where we can push those limits and what is safe and what isn't, and know that for ourselves. And then in terms of making mistakes, it has gotten to an extreme where it's kids did not want to take any kind of risk for fear of making a mistake, even with things like, I don't want to go into that store and order something, or that restaurant and order something because I don't know how to do it. Can you order for me? Can you ask for me? But even with all of this, it wasn't really until the mass distribution of smartphones around 2010 that a significant shift started to happen. Because up until this point, parents could still tell their children, it's time to turn off your TV console, your gaming console, it's time to turn off the TV, computers. Yes, it's time to turn off your computer, but that computer even was more often than not in a common area where everyone could see what was happening and you didn't have as much privacy, and there were more eyes on what you were doing. And once the smartphone became so popular, kids were now constantly connected, no matter where they were. And they were able to do it in areas where there was no real monitoring or parameters in place. And so they were exposed to things that they weren't necessarily developmentally ready to consume. And there was a reduction in the quantity and quality of their in person social interactions. And so, because of all of this, Haidt is claiming that that led to an actual rewiring in the brains, and a rewiring of childhood is what he's calling it, because they were not acquiring the developmental skills that for hundreds of years were previously learned in childhood. And from that rewiring, we've now seen an increase in mental health issues like anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and addiction. Now, fortunately, he doesn't just share all these findings and then leave us with no suggestions for fixing the issues. He does go into great detail about what governments should be doing, what responsibilities the tech companies have over this, what parents can do at home, and what schools can do as well. And so this is where we are at. His overarching hopeful recommendations for parents and schools are that there should be no smartphones before high school, no social media before 16. Schools should be phone free, and there should be an increase in the ways that we are allowing children to develop independence. We should be increasing the amount that they're able to play unsupervised, and they should be given more responsibility in the real world. Now, many of you might hear those recommendations and think, yeah, right. Like, good luck taking my kid's cell phone away. Or, I would love to do that, but it's so hard because all of their friends have it. Or, my child needs to have a cell phone because they walk to school or they take the bus, whatever it may be. They have after school programming, and that makes 100% sense. Firstly, you are absolutely not alone in thinking that. And um, the truth is that there has been a lot of criticism for the book, and none of the suggestions are necessarily the right ones. They're definitely not easy or straightforward. And we love that there's been criticism. In Judaism, that's what it's all about, is thinking critically, listening to the arguments, discussing it. We think those counter arguments are equally important to hear and discuss. And that's why we wanted to bring all this up tonight, because we see this as a partnership. And Haidt himself even says that this is a communal responsibility. One person, one family, one school or organization alone won't make a difference. Our power is in our numbers. So, what is our plan for the year? Well, we've already gone phone free in middle school. We collect cell phones in the morning and we return them at the end of the day. We piloted this at the end of last school year, and we immediately saw an improvement in social interactions, particularly at lunch, because as it is right now, our grade 7 and 8 students are allowed to go to the JCC for lunch. And what was happening was students were going next door to the JCC. And although we've always had a no cell phone policy, miraculously, those cell phones were able to be snuck out of school from their backpacks, brought with them over to the JCC, and then kids were just sitting around on their cell phones, on social media, whatever it was they were doing, playing games. And as soon as we took the cell phones away, collected them in the morning, all of a sudden, nobody wanted to go over to the JCC anymore. They were spending lots of time in the schoolyard, playing, being creative, talking, socializing. And again, when they had their cell phones in their bags, they knew it was there. And we can all understand that desire to just check to see, do I have notifications? Has anyone messaged me? What's coming in? And so in between classes, at recess time, when they would be going to their lockers, even if they weren't necessarily taking their cell phones out for anyone to see, they were still being distracted by wanting to check those notifications. Second, we've partnered with the Let Grow Experience, which you'll be hearing more about from your children's teachers in the coming weeks. But this is an initiative that promotes increased independence in the real world in an age-appropriate way. It is organized through a homework program. So there's lots of resources that we feel extremely fortunate to have access to now, that your child's teachers will be sending home for homework. In partnership with you, there will be lots of parent communication, suggestion, discussion guides, things like that. And everything meets the children where they currently are and just helps them take the next step, small step towards independence. We also hope to run book clubs with the anxious generation, both formal and informal. And what we mean by that is that we will be selecting specific cohorts to run these book clubs with. And as a parent, if you're in that cohort, we would love for you to join in for that book club. But then we'll also be giving you some book club guides so that if informally you and some parents within your child's cohort want to get together and run a book club on your own, you are absolutely more than welcome to do that. The Anxious Generation has incredible resources, one of which is these book club guides, and we'll be sharing those with you and adding some additional things to it as well that we feel, based on our needs, our community, would be good things to discuss. We're also in the process of booking speakers and collecting resources for parents on this issue and others related to mental health and tech use. And we will be running those sessions, inviting speakers to come in throughout the year. And so you will definitely be hearing more about that. We continue to develop and refine the lessons we already do with our students around media literacy, and we are constantly looking at trends to help them better navigate the online world in a safe way. And so our teachers are making sure to update those lessons, continue to offer them in collaboration with Bridget, our media literacy specialist and library technician. And so we are committed to doing that as well. And our teachers, when we say in class, so we're thinking about those lessons that are specifically targeting this theme. But on the flip side of it, teachers are also thinking really strategically about how they are using technology and being more reflective of their own reliance and potential overuse of it in the classroom. And finally, we've also recently upgraded our security and monitoring software for our school owned Google accounts for both students and teachers. And that's partially why we now require all students to use Google Chrome when they're at school. So we need you to know, though, that with this change, anytime students are logged into their OJCS accounts, which are owned by the school, their activity is tracked by our security software. So if you have any questions or concerns about what this means, know that we'll be communicating more. But if you have specific questions, please reach out to us to discuss this with us further. But if it is something that you understand and that it's important to you, we recommend that you consider getting a personal account for your child so that when they are at home, not working on school related work, they're using their personal account as opposed to their school account. So in the coming days, you'll get the first of hopefully many resources from me. I'll be sharing these slides for anyone who wasn't present. I'll share some useful links to podcasts and webinars that we've found informative. I'll be sharing out more information about our book clubs and including that book club guide in case you decide you want to organize one on your own. And I'll also be sharing a Google form where you can share your own ideas or connections you might have or suggestions for programming at school related to this, because we really, again, as I've said, this is a partnership, this is a collaboration. I'm clearly very passionate about this, but I am not the expert on it. And our power is in numbers. And I know that I've spoken to a few of you already. I know that there are things and ideas and resources that you already have, things you have done, and we just want to share those as much as we can. So the resources that I'll be sharing will be a live document. We'll be continuously adding to it. Please don't hesitate to share any ideas or resources or connections that you have. So thank you all. We really look forward to continuing this conversation.